Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations. Here we are today to talk about our thoughts, bets, and our picks, gone good or gone wrong, for all of UFC Fight Island. With your hosts, TB Scouting MMA and
The MMA guru, freshest in our mind, UFC 257, taking place January 23rd. Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 2. I guess we'll just start off from the top and say, wow, Dustin. I mean, hats off. I think anybody that had Dustin, I mean, again, hats off to them. I don't think anybody thought within 2 rounds it would be Dustin getting the finish.
yeah, and here I was thinking it might end up being a good fight, might be close. Dustin might, pull away in the later rounds. Pull away in the later rounds. There were no later rounds to be spoken of, and that's a testament right there to everything that Poirier did to chop at the leg, and he was able to take one to give two, and the combinations he was landing were very impressive.
It couldn't have happened to a better guy, honestly. Paid in full. He's got 25 minutes to make life fair is what he likes to say, and he really did. Hats off to him. Options are a bounty galore for Conor McGregor now. Dustin looks like maybe we'll get. Hopefully, the pure fight would be Charles. Hopefully, the pure fight would be Charles Oliveira for the title, but who knows?
Sure.
Always some fuckery galore.
Yeah, Dana
I heard
already was
that
trying
trying to get Chandler and Gaethje to fight. Not Chandler, Gaethje, Chandler and Oliveira to fight in March, but not for the belt. And he was like, nah.
Yeah, no, I don't blame him at all. And Dustin, I mean, he should really be given his choice of who he wants for the title
He
at
wants
this
the
point.
money fight. He wants a trilogy with McGregor.
Yeah, why not?
Why wouldn't he want that?
But
Michael Chandler hasn't looked better. I mean, he looked fantastic.
that was incredible. And
Dan Hooker, I think something that I didn't necessarily realize is how out of sync he was with his camp, not only just for that fight, not having his head coach there, but out of sync for the entire year. It said it's kind of out of sync for the entire year. It said it's kind of something that threw him off because he likes being in sync with Adesanya and Kai Kara France and Volkanovski. Like when they're all training together, he likes to be, in that full camp swing with the boys. And it was difficult because his fights, he was main eventing. It kind of fell. He was main eventing. It kind of fell separately than his boys, and that made it very difficult for him.
Sure, and I think even pre-fights he was talking about trying to be a little bit more like, Adesanya and Volkanovski, and trying to really avoid being hit as much as he has in the past. And on fight night, when he's just running in circles around the cage without any type of offensive game plan,
he froze. He straight up froze. It was fight or flight, and he froze, man. He just totally froze.
Yeah, but I got to tip your hat to Chandler because he came out there and showed. Yeah, but I got to tip your hat to Chandler because he came out there and showed better use of his combinations. And Sanford MMA doing a really great job. Maybe I should have focused a little bit more on that. And Henry Hooft, fantastic striking coach. So hats off to them for creating, a way to attack the body, guard, and finish off up top because he didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, Hooker, he even said it in the fantastic interview he just gave with Submission Radio. He just said, that he was thinking, and a lot of fighting is the lizard brain, the reaction, the instinctual reaction, and then obviously you're training, like what you're thinking about and fight IQ. I just think that he froze. I just think that he spent too much time reading. And like he said, he kind of guessed wrong. But I guess that brings us to the next fight, which was the decision between Joanne Calderwood and Jessica Eye, which leaned wrong there.
Sure.
Tough fight. We kind of said maybe not the best fight to put your money on.
Yeah, which, I definitely went against my own advice there. Definitely put some money on Jessica Eye, but I didn't think that she disappointed in the same way that she did in her previous fight. So I think she gave a better representation in that Maya fight.
Yeah, I mean, and just as I pull up the stats here, Jessica I did have 5 minutes of control time versus Calderwood. So obviously, I mean, her game plan was executed to some degree. It just wasn't good enough.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, one for 4 on takedowns. So
Yeah, I think Calderwood really showed her strength in the clinch, and even I had it written down that she had underrated strength there. So good job. She kept it at
Calderwood.
distance when she needed to.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, Calderwood went 43 of 56 on leg kicks. I mean, that's brutal.
Yeah, that'll stop your movement and really take a lot out of those.
That's brutal.
Yeah, that'll stop your movement and really take a lot out of those punches. So the power differential never really came into play.
Absolutely. Next fight.
Mahmoud Muradov versus Andrew Sanchez, and this one played out just how I was thinking. So at least there was, a couple fights on the night where. So at least there was, a couple fights on the night where I felt good about my prognostication abilities. So
Yeah, we did like Muradov. We did feel that Sanchez would fall in love with the striking too much, or would just be too comfortable there, and he eventually succumbed to TKO.
And something to remember is that footwork is going to do just as much to help with takedown defense as knowing what to do when a guy actually shoots for a takedown. So I don't think Sanchez ever really got to a point where he was going to have a chance to take it to the ground, even if that was part of his game plan, just due to, once again, the footwork and ability of Muradov to distance where he wanted to be. And those combinations are just special.
Without doubt. Moving on to the next fight. Amanda Ribas versus Marina Rodriguez, and wow, did that not go our way?
Yeah,
that not go our way?
Yeah, that was a
just
tough one.
Yeah, I really tough. Ribas not transitioning, not going through her guard. Was a costly mistake, letting Marina get back to her feet, and for her. A little disappointing because I guess when you look back through her record, she had been knocked out just once before by somebody in the UFC, right? Viana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that hole is there. You would have thought that she had been continuing to work on it as she continues to work on her jiu-jitsu and her other skills. But obviously that hole is there. And when you look at her past matchups previously, she hadn't really faced a striker to expose that. And now she did.
Right. And, she lived to tell the tale about it, but, she lived to tell the tale about it, but, not for our bankrolls at least. And
no, that was brutal.
And
she was the lock. She was our layup. And
yeah,
that's and that's tough. That's really tough.
I think mentally she got away from the takedown game. She, what her opponent was talking about, and she admitted to it after the fight that her opponent, Rodriguez, really, just came up with a great game plan in that second round, put on the pressure, caught her with a great shot, and let's talk about Herb Dean not really stepping in quite quick enough to stop that one. Actually calling the fight. I mean,
that was the worst. That was awful.
Yeah,
I mean,
that take unnecessary damage.
That was really poor. That was really poor refereeing. Plain and simple, that's poor. Plain and simple, that's poor. Moving on. Arman Tsarukyan versus a fight that got kind of thrown together there at the last minute ended up actually being relatively interesting. At least for my bankroll, it was one of the things I had right. I loved Tsarukyan by decision. That went through.
Yeah, and Frevola proved that he's a tough guy. He can grapple with just about anybody in the ground. And in the stand-up, while he was about, half a step slow on Tsarukyan, he still showed that he has some counter abilities, and his chin held up. So,
he was just super inefficient.
Yeah,
he was just super inefficient. But that's from Tsarukyan just I mean, exhausting him.
Yeah, and his movement is incredible. So the other thing is that this fight never would have been put together if it wasn't for one guy not being able to make weight and one guy being thrown out of the UFC for that bag, Atman Azaitar. So I really need to know what that bag, Atman Azaitar. So I really need to know what was in that bag.
Well, I think it was drugs. My guess is cocaine.
Yeah, that would be a good time. Everyone wants to have a good time,
I
right?
don't think it was. I don't think it was steroids or
No,
anything
I
like that.
mean,
I think it's drugs. What
sure.
else do you? What do you need? What do you
Yeah,
need? But I think it's drugs. What
sure.
else do you? What do you need? What do you
Yeah,
need? But what's the one thing you really tough to get and to buy after you win your fight? Probably your party drugs.
yeah.
So
Hey, and before his fight,
that would be my
apparently.
guess. Well, you got to secure the bag before the fight, so then you don't
Right,
knock the
right.
guy in.
Sure, sure, sure.
You got the champagne on ice already. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
All right, all right. Yeah, get that
You
ice
know
on
how
ice.
that is. Speaking of the opposite of champagne on ice, how about our pick of Antonio Carlos Jr. over Brad Tavares?
Yeah, talk about wanting to
How about
put a
that
chew in your face.
Doo-doo-ch. Doo-doo-ch. Yeah, Carlos Jr. was just completely inefficient, horrible striking. Couldn't 1 for 12 on the takedowns. I mean, was just I don't know, was really, really poor. Not his night.
Sure,
Really poor. Not his night.
sure, we kind of thought the small kid would give him the opportunity to use his size and work in the clinch and get some takedowns, but unfortunately, it didn't actually turn into converted takedowns. It was just a lot of empty control time without strikes, and it was just minute by minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If Antonio Carlos Jr. was a better striker, I think his game plan would go better. You have to kind of beat somebody up a little bit for them to be more willing to succumb to you trying to take them down, unless you're an Olympic wrestler like Daniel Cormier, who knows all the best positions of wrestling and leverage and all the best positions of wrestling and leverage and all these different things. Like, you got to kind of beat somebody up. You can't just shoot for 12 takedowns and hope you're going to trip them up. Like,
Sure,
it's just
especially
not
with
going to work.
someone with that much experience.
And I think, again, and had faced Shabazian and Adesanya in his last 2 fights. I mean, yeah, he lost him, but my God. So, obviously he's going to get a nice fight next.
Sure.
I'd be interested to see who he fights next. Truly.
Well, another poor pick on our part was Sarah McMahon losing cardio and had a great performance. Finished with that 3rd-round submission that Sarah McMahon is so willing to succumb to.
In our defense, it was the same rationale. It was the same exact rationale, and we lost for the same exact reason. We like the wrestler to come in and take somebody down, have to be able to strike to get there. And McMahon had absolutely no striking. She was horrible. So when that happens, you get beat up. And when you get beat up and can't implement your game plan, you lose a fight. And that's what happened. When, honestly, not to be that guy, but when I saw McMahon lose the way that she did, I'm like, about Antonio Carlos Jr. as well.
Sure, and especially when that
not that they should, but
yeah, especially when that fight came after the fun that happened with Marcin Prachnio and Khalil Roundtree, and just seeing them at walkouts, it kind of kept up with that nervous feeling I had for his career.
Yeah, and one thing that was a little unprecedented because some can argue that Roundtree still could have won the fight. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm in that boat, but the argument could be made. Roundtree, the argument could be made. Roundtree, the unprecedented low level of fight IQ.
Sure.
I mean, there are times, multiple times throughout the fight where you have the guy hurt and he just kept backing off. I mean, you have to know when to put somebody away. You have to know, he had to know when to put somebody away. You have to know, he didn't want to gas out, but guess what happened? In that 3rd round, he had the lowest output of any of his 3 rounds. So he was tired anyway. So you're still worried about not gassing in those moments, but guess what? You're tired at the end of the fight anyway, and you lost. So you got to know when to go for it.
Yeah, he really didn't capitalize when he needed to. And right along to the next one. Movsar Evliev and Nick Lentz. Talk about a little bit of a sweat in the early beginnings of that fight. Lentz really sinking in the gear. His neck is made of rubber. He obviously doesn't feel it the same way other people do. He keeps so calm and just wriggles out and then dominates the rest of the way, on the feet.
I think it needs to be said though, for as quote unquote worrisome as the fight was, it was a domination by Evliev, and to me personally, I think that split decision is criminal.
Yes,
I think that's ridiculous.
yeah, the danger of a sub attempt that, ultimately didn't cause any damage or real danger after you saw how he got out of the first one, he's just able to roll right out and really he's the one causing all the damage. Lens looks horrible, cut up, beat up, barely
Yeah,
making it to the finish
I,
line.
I just don't know how Judge Eric Colon can score that fight 29-28 for for Lentz, excuse me, for Nick the Carney Lentz, who was blind during that fight. I mean, you just can't. I mean, it's just I think that's criminal.
Sure. And for our first opening fight of the night, that actually kicked us off in a good way, and Amir Albazi was able to take a unanimous decision. Over Zhalgas Zhumagulov, and he was able to control it in the wrestling exchanges, and he held his own in the stand-up where we thought that he might have some issues. So I was definitely really impressed with the Prince Albazi, and want to see what kind of matchup he gets going forward.
Yeah, Albazi looked great. That was the first fight of that card. It almost made us feel like we were doing well when that first bet started to cash, but the tides quickly turned from there for us. But
Sure.
Albazi looked great.
And there's no sugarcoating it. Definitely had careers betting UFC with McGregor not pulling through, in addition to a lot of bad picks. But thankfully, as we move along to these next two cards, we'll have a lot more positives to talk
We did
about.
a little bit better.
So
Yes.
to get us kicked off, starting off from the top, because it's a little bit more fun when we're recapping win over Neil Magny, and we couldn't have been more right on this one. We didn't really get to break it down. A lot of stuff happening on short weeks, so didn't get a podcast out for this one. But if you looked at our picks that we did release, you would have seen Chiesa moneyline was there. And while he didn't get the submission, I think
Chiesa early in the week, even like a couple weeks out when the fight had gotten announced, I was like, I don't know why, I'm kind of feeling Chiesa. Obviously, like TV alluded to, we really couldn't have been more right. Chiesa absolutely dominated with 4 takedowns landed of his 6 and 15 minutes of control time. Just a really wonderful performance by him, and then to call out Colby Covington, which was really funny. That was great. I don't know what's next for him. Realistically, when you look at the rankings, he's got tough matchups ahead because everybody can strike, and it was pretty clear in that fight that his striking is I don't know, still kind of lacking.
definitely, but it's just enough to get it. But
my point is I think a wonderful matchup, which I believe is one ranking ahead of him. I believe he's 6th. I believe number 5 is Wonder Boy. I think Wonder Boy and Chiesa is a fantastic matchup. That you're going to get inside on Wonder Boy. I think that's a tough fight.
Sure, yeah, that he might be one of those guys just crazy enough to eat the damage, because there are certainly openings to be able to get inside and create a body lock, whereas shooting for a takedown isn't as successful against Wonder Boy. And I think that Chiesa actually might be someone that could give him a problem, because if you could slip a leg kick and then just wrap those long arms around the body, he might be someone that could present some issues for him. But
agreed. Yeah. So yeah, and by the way, Wonder Boy is ranked 5th. I just pulled it up, and Chiesa is ranked 6th.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
But I don't know. Because Jorge. I don't know. Because Jorge Masvidal doesn't have a fight. Colby Covington doesn't have a fight. Uh,
Well, they're talking about
yeah,
getting that one together, but who knows if they'll actually get it.
we would love that. Moving on is the probably our worst pick of that entire an absolutely brutal loss from Munir Lazez, getting beaten up,
Body
beaten
kick to oblivion.
body kick to oblivion by Warley Alves. I mean, I did not see that coming. I just maybe brings me back to the South Park. You're ignorant. I was ignorant. I did not expect Warley Alves to do that. Plain and simple.
Not at this stage in his career, but he seems to have taken away some of the unnecessary bulk in his frame, and maybe he might be attacking the game a little bit in his frame, and maybe he might be attacking the game a little bit smarter, because those body kicks were absolutely devastating. So, good on him getting the early stoppage. And Lazez, might have seemed a little bit nervous, to perform in front of his home crowd there. To perform in front of his home crowd there.
And not to mention, the two they couldn't be more opposite in terms of lots of experience and inexperience. Warley Alvarez has been in there with Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington as is making his second UFC performance.
Sure. And, maybe that's something, overlooked ahead of time. But thankfully,
Definitely overlooked by us.
not one of our, better
Brighter
picks, but
picks.
not one of our worst cards. So that moving along, we had Ike Villanueva. For him to get it done, had to feel good for him, and he was completely gypped of a bonus. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't taken care of.
I agree. He's got a really interesting story if you kind of follow him on Instagram. Yeah, it was definitely a little. I was a little hurt for him that he didn't get that 50K. I was a little hurt for him that he didn't get that 50K. But it happens. He kind of took it on the chin, and
Yeah.
you go out and you focus on getting the next one.
Yeah.
And just so we are clear, it was Alves that got $50,000 bonus, the Mike Davis Mason Jones fight, which we're gonna get to, and the Umar Nurmagomedov submission got the $50,000 bonus.
Yeah, sure.
Which when you're relatives with Khabib, you're gonna get that check. But
yeah,
maybe that's me being cynical. But
mm-hmm.
I think you could have shelled out another 50K for.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation about pay structure and bonuses and how it's a broken system. But that's a conversation for another day.
I'm just curious if there was another earlier submission in that card. Let's do second fight of the card, whatever. Two guys go at it in that card. Let's do second fight of the card, whatever. Two guys go at it. Does that second round submission get the bonus over that second round knockout and in the main event, in the main card?
Yeah,
sorry,
it's a good question.
Anyway, it amplifies it because he's Umar Nurmagomedov, but
mm-hmm.
It was a really impressive submission.
Yeah, talk about having bad feelings in the next.
Oh fight. Yeah, terrible feelings for this next fight, which was Viviane Araújo and Roxanne Modafferi.
And, seeing it when I started getting a little nervous about the Araújo side, and I shouldn't have been. The initial scouting said everything I needed to know about the takedown defense and athleticism advantage, the striking advantage, and it all showed up during the fight. And sometimes you take a chance on a +2 something and you feel good about it, like Li Jingliang, which chance on a +2 something and you feel good about it, like Li Jingliang, which we'll get to, but sometimes it's Roxanne Modafferi and it doesn't work out for you.
Yeah, I was very happy I stayed away from this fight for the most part. Obviously, hindsight being 2020, I would have loved to have put Araújo by decision, but the line was a little pricey and whatever. Happy to move away and move on to the next pick that we actually, again, a split decision, which I'm not sure I agree with. Matt Schnell over Tyson Nam.
Yeah, this was a very
I agree with that split decision.
Yeah, very, very.
It was a great fight.
Yeah.
Very
Schnell came out of the gate
fight.
hot, and now I'm really, turned it on as the fight went on there.
Yeah, I listen, as I look up on the stats, there wasn't a round. There was not a single round that Schnell didn't land. There was not a single round that Schnell didn't land more strikes. So that's not ideal.
Not
So I don't.
ideal, but it got
I mean,
me
listen, that's
closer
not
than
how
normal.
that's not. We all know that's not how fights are decided just by simply looking at the stats. I'm also saying that based on how I watched it, I saw it was a
Yeah.
30-27.
Mm-hmm.
Based on how I watched it, I saw it was a 30-27
Mm-hmm.
for Schnell.
Right. And, similar to the next fight, Lerone Murphy and Douglas Andrade de Silva, Murphy really put it on him, but Andrade was able to, get a little bit better as the fight went on and at least keep it
In third round than he was in the first. And Lerone Murphy, man, looks like a legitimate prospect. I'm really excited to see him fight again.
Yeah, he's great. Really like him. The next one, Omari Akhmedov doing his thing against Tom Breese and finally getting a finish at middleweight and carrying some of that energy into the second round this time after what looked like it might have been a rough weight cut. But hey, good job. Good on him. Got to finish this time.
I have to take a very tiny victory lap because this was a fight that obviously had gotten moved a couple times and one that I had this was a fight that obviously had gotten moved a couple times and one that I had kept obsessing over a little bit because the tape in my eyes kept showing me Akhmedov, and a lot of people I respected liked Breeze, including the Vegas odds, and I was very happy that I and went with Akhmedov.
Yes, and speaking of weigh-ins and looking a little rough on the scales, Ricky Simone did not look great up there, but still got the job done against Gaetano Perello and just showed that his wrestling size and his striking is pretty under at this point. Really overpowered him in all assets.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's if there's really any bantamweights in the division that can wrestle better than Ricky Simone. I mean, I'm listening.
Well, I mean, Merab Dvalishvili would like to have a conversation.
Didn't Ricky Simone beat him?
Really would like to have a conversation.
Didn't Ricky Simone beat him?
That was a very interesting end to that fight, if you remember correctly.
I don't. So you could remind me.
Yeah, Merab went for a takedown and kind of knocked himself out, but the ref didn't catch it. The ref didn't catch it. And, Simone is there, running his legs like a bicycle and whatever. And at the end of the fight, the ref says that he was actually out and submitted. So very weird.
Listen, they can run it. They can run it back. But to your point, okay. So all right. So those are the top two wrestlers.
Yeah.
Fair.
Sure.
In the bantamweight division, right?
Sure.
In the bantamweight division, right? I think that's fair.
Yeah, at the moment until Cejudo comes back.
Oh, don't get me started on Triple C, baby. That's my boy. That's my boy right there. That's my dog.
Anywho,
Sumadarji.
Yeah, pick that I like. Wow, that went to decision. Look at that. It's like, wow, that went to decision. Look at that. It's a lot tougher when you're not facing Malcolm Gordon to get the knockout, and Adashev, really came in much better shape, and he's a real kickboxer, and he almost put Mudarji out himself. That second round was awesome.
Oh my God, Mudarji looks good though. I mean,
round was awesome.
Oh my God, Mudarji looks good though. I mean, if you get somebody that's a more accurate striker than him, he's gonna go down. But he's very exciting to watch at this stage.
He's got a slight frame, so I think anyone that really goes for those takedowns against him in the future, with a bigger frame, I think a guy like him has a chance against Figueiredo. Let's be serious, but that's a long way away.
No. He's not even ranked. Yeah, he's not even in the top 15 yet. So he's facing Adashev. So we'll see who he's got next.
Exactly.
Next fight,
Dalcha Lungiambula versus Marcus Perez, and Lungiambula just showed what an athletic beast he was, dominating all aspects of the grappling, and he actually did all right in the stand-up. It ended up being a pretty close fight, but I felt pretty good with the Lungiambula pick, and it came through.
One of my big picks, probably my best pick of maybe One of my big picks, probably my best pick of maybe possibly all three cards. Logan Bula by decision plus 600.
Yeah, that was a great bet, and I should have been following that one because you tried telling me. I just didn't listen.
Yeah, we're trying to fight those narratives, and for example, like Tom Breeze getting the knockout or Logan Bula getting the knockout, when you kind of fade that narrative a little bit, you kind of can find some success. And I think that's definitely a type of thinking that I'm going to continue to look towards.
Yes. So, similar to that, Francisco Figueiredo, I came in looking for him to get the knockout here, and he ends up winning a decision that, Rivera made a little bit interesting there at the end. And, I think Figueiredo, if he's facing a higher level opponent, he's probably taking the loss. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Jerome Rivera was not. He's not. I don't know if he's UFC caliber in my mind. It was a big win by Francisco Figueiredo, who faded down the stretch. Get him. I think he needs to, get in a good training. I know he has a gym with his brother, so I think he needs his skills. I mean, he is Figueiredo's younger brother, so Davidson younger brother. So like to continue to see where he gets from here. That can't get much worse. So I mean, he did win. So let's. I'd like to see him get better.
I agree. And then let's get to a fight that we agree. And then let's get to a fight that you kind of mentioned earlier. Mike Davis versus Mason Jones, fight of the night. Oh man, this was a
Fight
great
of the month. Fight of the month.
Sure.
Don't at me. Don't at me. This fight was better than Holloway and Cater. Do not at me. Like, I don't like.
Yeah,
That's a hot take.
We like
It's
back
fine,
and forth.
whatever.
It's not a
Fine, whatever.
It's not a hot take because it was a fight that was actually
It's a hot take.
competitive and went back and forth. Holloway was a one-sided. Okay, we'll get to that, but
We're getting to that.
yeah, but Mike
I think
Davis.
this might be a hot take to some. But Mike Davis, man. Mike Davis is a beast, man. And Mason Jones, man, I was so Mason Jones because of the tape that I watched. I really, really loved what I saw. I thought he was UFC caliber. I thought he was really well-rounded. I thought he was tough. And honestly, all those things were right. I did see all those things correctly, but I was happy that I stayed away from that tantalizing. But I was happy that I stayed away from that tantalizing, all of it, exciting dog money. I stayed away from that and stayed on the Mike Davis decision specifically, and we hit.
Yeah, I even jumped in live and took a reduced line on Mike Davis. So I was very happy he pulled out the decision. Apparently he came in not at 100%, so I'm excited to see what he looks like when he's ready to go. Another fight that we already spoke of, Umar Nurmagomedov and Sergey Morozov. The first round was a little competitive. Just an unreal striker. His kicks are effortless, and Morozov was soon in over his head, and couldn't keep doing those Granby rolls to get out. So he succumbed to that rear naked choke, and good on him not tapping and going out. But good on him not tapping and going out, but I'm sure it doesn't help in the long run.
Yeah, Umar, another guy that needs to get back into the octagon, needs to stay healthy, and needs to get another fight under his belt. Like his trainer Khabib said, he is another fight under his belt. Like his trainer Khabib said, he is definitely green out there. I would like to see him fight again. Probably, I mean, if not the end of the first quarter, I mean, second quarter, got to get this ball rolling, kid.
Yeah. And finally, for the first fight of the card was Manon Fiorot versus Victoria Leonardo. And
that goes a beast. That goes a beast.
Pure domination. It was like watching Wonder Boy in women's MMA, just with the way she was able to dominate with those side kicks, the in and out movement, the karate style. Just going to be a name to keep an eye on.
Well, she's got power. I mean, she's a beast.
Yeah.
Did I mention that she's a beast? She's a beast. Moving on.
And finally, on to the last card that we need to go over here with
UFC Fight Island 7, the first ever card on ABC. I hope you guys liked watching that on network TV. I know I did. That was sweet. Definitely, it was awesome, and to have that, on channel 2 or whatever, and, for that to be right in the middle of the day, that was sweet. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar, man, what a beatdown. Calvin Kattar, man, so tough, so tough, so tough, so tough. You gotta tip your hat to him. But Holloway put on a performance for the ages, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
his boxing is incredible.
Yeah, I'm of the thought line, the process that, I would have liked to see process that, I would have liked to see the fight stopped at some point by the corner going into the fifth round, maybe. And, we could say all we want about how, good he looked afterwards and everything like that. It's just knowing how that many punches adding everything like that. It's just knowing how that many punches adding up. It reminds me of boxing and some of the deaths we saw the
Oh,
past
for
couple of years.
sure.
And, Dana was
Did you
nervous. He wanted to get him
did
out.
everybody see that video of Dana really nervous, especially on live TV of I mean, he was nervous for Kattar, like, literally dying.
Yeah.
I mean, when you take, those that many strikes to the head, it is certainly worrisome. Um, I think every single time that it got so close to stopping, Kattar would just do something to show you that he wanted to be in there. Especially like again when he reassured Dana that he was fine and kind of laughed and shrugged everything off. It did make everybody feel better. That being said, the viewer from home doesn't necessarily have that luxury of getting reassured by the fighter that he is fine. And that being said, people have said that they're fine and they still have those concussive. And that being said, people have said that they're fine and they still have those concussive symptoms or can still collapse later. I'm certainly not a brain expert, but
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, even having to think
listen,
about it. That's all. So,
listen, I had away by decision, so I'll be honest. I was sitting there cheering for Kattar to hang in there. So that's maybe listen. That's maybe fucked up of me as a human being, person to person, but that was where I ended up gambling was, and
sure.
that is what we were here to discuss.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
I
hey,
was I was I was cheering
yeah,
for that, and I was happy that it made it there, even though it probably shouldn't have.
yeah. The Holloway 4-5er decision ended up being real comfortable, though. I'm sure, that was my favorite one, and you had the
That
decision,
was one that we
and
liked.
hey, we both ended up cashing. So, you gotta love it.
Yeah, that
Decision,
was one
and,
that we
and
liked.
hey, we both ended up cashing. So, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
Talk about the
I'm not
old dads in the backyard brawl next.
Oh
Uh,
my god. That was the other South Park scene with, "I didn't hear no bell."
yeah. Condon and
That was
Brown.
great.
Oh god, yeah, that was a classic fight. A little confused that, it was a unanimous decision and that, anyone could say a 30-27 and yeah, I would
It
say
was
it ended up
30-20.
being a it ended up
I'm
being a
not mad.
close 30-27.
Yeah, I'm not mad at a 29-28, but I mean, let's be real. It should be a unanimous decision for Ant Hill, what hill he wants to die on. Oh, it should be a split decision. Like, dude, like what? What are we talking about here? You should have won one more round. Like, you lost the fight. Don't die on thinking that you won a round when you didn't. Like, you did not perform well. So I think that's the wrong mindset to have.
Yeah. And, so going on to
This
mine.
one away. This is
So,
beautiful by you.
Li
I didn't
Jiangliang
hear anybody.
versus
I didn't hear
Santiago
anybody.
Ponzinibbio
You feel free to add us if you saw a capper, you saw somebody you respect on
on
Li
Li.
Xing Liang. If you saw somebody, add us on Twitter or
And
except
here I was
except
on
for
an
David.
island. And, he really showed up at that short check hook and just caught Ponzinibbio and dropped him, and, it was definitely what I was looking for. Ponzinibbio coming off a huge layoff, priced as a huge favorite, like it was like he had never left, is the way he was being treated by the betting market. And, this is a guy that was talking about fighting at a lower weight class because he didn't get all of his muscle back. And then he got COVID. And, you know, it, at the end of the day, COVID and you know, at the end of the day, I'm gonna just be happy with that win because I took some very big losses on the McGregor card. So, moving along, talking about losses, Joaquin
Talking about
Buckley,
2 losses.
the
Oh
Chirico
my
and
god,
Buckley.
that's 2 fights, yeah.
Oh,
Um,
the
oh
Chirico
my
and
god,
Buckley.
that's 2 fights, yeah.
Oh,
Chirico Buckley, I mean, which fight was more surprising? Obviously, probably you're the wrong person to ask, but to the public, what fight was more surprising to you guys? Lee getting the knockout or Chirico getting the knockout? I mean, for me, maybe because I had TB in my Chirico, but man, the first round head kick, oof,
yeah,
that is
and he set it
dirty.
up well. I mean, I didn't see anything on tape to tell me about the head kick, so, hats off to him and, maybe I wasn't looking closely enough.
Listen, what we saw, the line was overpriced and sketchy, and that we knew that Buckley was not as good as that should dictate. Like we know that he's extremely limited in his mixed martial arts ability at this stage in his career. He's just got that viral knockout, and he's a good looking built guy, and they were building him, and looking built guy, and they were building him and they were trying to build him with Di Chirico, and he saved his career. So
Yeah.
hats off to him, man. I mean, that was a sick KO.
Yes, and, once again, the next fight, Punahele Soriano just Todorovic's, head movement issues, might come to surprise him in another fight. He got caught in this one.
Yep, it was this one, another time where maybe tried to get too cute or whatever. We saw a hole, an obvious hole, and we didn't expect Soriano's camp to expose that or whatever it was, whatever our rationale was. We saw the hole, and we thought, maybe the next fight or whatever. But no, like you just said, it was this fight. So moving right along, we liked. How about that one? We did like Jocelyn Edwards over Yanan Wu.
Yes,
Jocelyn Edwards over Yanan Wu.
Yes, as the week went on and we saw weigh-ins and
Baller.
everything happen, she was definitely the bigger fighter and had a lot more output in that first round armbar attempt. That would have been the fourth one in her career had she been able to pull it off. So let's keep an eye on her coming up on this career had she been able to pull it off. So let's keep an eye on her coming up on this next card against Carol Hosa. I believe she's going to hold a height and reach advantage and just might be able to do something here. But
That's a tough one.
yeah, so
That's a tough one. I'm not sure about that one yet,
yeah.
but that's a really exciting fight. And Edwards really a decision over Justin Tafa.
I was
I
nervous
don't,
with this one. I don't know.
yeah, I was nervous. I was quite nervous. I mean, I can pull up the stats.
Yeah, not even
Really,
necessary. I mean, Tafa really just made it where he didn't rely on his distance striking and leg kicks as much as the fight went on, and Felipe was able to get in a little.
and definitely, I think Tafa definitely won the first round. I think we can all probably agree on that. I think
Yes.
it's the next two where they kind of go up in the air.
That's right.
Was on Felipe. Would be remiss to say that if or not remiss to say that I was happy to be on him, but that was a barn burner.
Sure.
Don't
But hey,
want to put
taking him
that.
by decision, that worked out.
Yeah.
And then, so Ramazan Ameev pulling out a real tight split decision against David Zawada. And I know I was on Zawada here. And, that was here. And, it was real close, but Ameev, he definitely was able to pull it out from the first
Another split
round. He really
decision.
controlled it. Yeah, another split decision for him. So those leg kicks, though, are going to keep giving him issues. And he really did get hurt a few times from some combos, and Zawada showed better cardio. And, it was a pretty good fight.
Vanessa Mello getting the win over Sarah Morris. No striking from Morris. I mean, really, no striking from Morris. I mean, really poor.
Yeah, more just yelling at the air and making tennis.
I don't want to sound like a woman striking hater. There's plenty of bad strikers in men's MMA, but I mean, They were terrible striking performances.
Yeah, and just the sounds also. You don't hear that many sounds. Oh man, it was just very poor overall, and Melo really just controlled the center and landed a few more strikes. And finally, our last fight to go over, Austin Lingo versus Kilburn. One of our best
Yeah,
bets
which
was this to go inside the
was
distance, and
that was brutal.
yeah,
That was brutal.
yeah,
Listen, and you know what it was? It was we had the right idea. Kilburn got knocked down early in that fight, if you remember.
yes,
We had the right idea. That was the finish. You know, that was where we were supposed to have it in that quote unquote alternate universe. You know, but both guys are really tough, and that's just not how it happened. And that's just not how it happened.
yeah. So overall, I know, at least myself had a good couple cards leading into McGregor, and maybe got cleaned out big time when it happened to be
Yeah,
the McGregor card. So I'm looking at it, it's down like 100 something overall. But let's not focus too much on that. Just getting started for the year, and I think now that we put all of our eggs in the McGregor basket, I think it's time to get back to our tape study, bring you guys some of our insight to our tape study, bring you guys some of our inside views and picks, and we're hoping to be dropping something within the next couple of days here for Overeem versus Volkov. So stay tuned. Any last thoughts, Guru?
no, pretty much the same as you, down a few units, but that McGregor card was super tough. Was up a few going into it. Uh, that being said, we'll right back up on that horse and focusing on this week's awesome card, Overeem versus Volkov. If you haven't already, please go follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, Chronic Combat Conversations. Instagram, please follow us on Instagram at Chronic Combat Conversations. Follow us on Twitter at Chronic Combat. Please follow TB at TB Scouting MMA on Instagram, Twitter, Verdict, and Tepology, and me as well, the underscore MMA Guru Tapology. Thanks, you guys, so much for tuning in with us, and